All right, welcome back. In previous lectures, we've gone through how to include CSS into our work, be it internal, external, or inline. We've gone through them. We've also learned how to the syntax of CSS, where we have the selector, and within it we have the declarations being given, which contains the property and also the value. Now, I also talked about the types of selectors that are available. In commenting, if you want to comment in CSS, this is how it's done. So we have the forward slash, and also there's a star, and within it you can have your single line commenting in there. Of course, if you have a multi-line commenting, this is also the same process. In PHP too, you realize the way we comment in CSS looks more like is the same for the way we also comment in PHP. Now, I would want you to take your time and go through some of these basics, how to add colors for CSS and stuff. So for instance, you can see an example here. We have an H1, and this is an inline type of CSS where we have the style given, and within it we've given a property of background color, and with this Dodger blue, and we have Dodger blue affecting this particular hello. So at the end of the day, we will have the hello world having the Dodger blue and all of that. Now for colors, I talked about the RGB. It's the same also in graphics. So R stands for red, green, and blue. And the colors, of course, it ranges from 0 to 255. So if it is 255, it means the color is that particular color is on. So when we are having colors in RGB format, we always would have it in this way. RGB. If R is up, is high, then it means it will be 255. Then green will be off, which is 00. So in this case, for an RGB format of way of including colors to your CSS, this would be red, because the red section, which is the RGB, is 255, which meaning it is on. And of course, the green and also the blue are all off. If you have less value, maybe 110 here, 110 here, 110 here, that tells you we have the same proportion of RGB combined together, which will eventually give you a different type of color. So in RGB, that is a way of referencing colors in CSS. Now, assuming you don't want that, you can see if I do drag this over here, this should tell you the different types that are available. Of course, when we have 255, it gives you a red color. If you have probably 128 or let's say 128 or 126, if you have the same colors over here, you can see it also gives you a different color. And of course, as you drag it, you have different types of colors that are available. That is one way. Assuming you also want to know the hexadecimal color for in CSS. Of course, the R will be RR, GG, and BB. So that is where the RR stands for red, and GG stands for green, and BB stands for blue. Just in the same way, when you have the color to be FFF, so like, it's a hexadecimal. So we start from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to 9, then 10 becomes A, B, C, through just like up till we get to F. So a combination of all of these colors will also give you a different type of color. So if you want to also reference your colors in CSS, you can also use the RGB, the hexadecimal values to represent your colors. And of course, we have the last one, which is the hue saturation lightness, which is the HSL. So that is also in this format. So in that case, you can have it just like a RGB. This is how you're going to represent it in CSS. So I would want you to briefly go through it and have your way around that, and see some few things about how to, what we have been doing so far. We're using the hexadecimal color numbers, but this time round you can also have a feel of how the hue saturation lightness also work. Now, how do we give backgrounds to images? In fact, these are some of the selectors, the properties that are available for giving images and for giving background colors in CSS. So we have background color, we have background image. So background color means we want to give a background color to some specific type of selector. And of course, if you want to include an image in maybe a box, you have a box that you want to have an image included within it, you can have the background image, you can call it. And these are ways to call the background color and also call the background image. This is the background color. So for background image, this is the format. You just use the property background image and you specify the URL of that particular image. And within that, if the picture, if the file is, like for instance, the file of is paper.gif, it means this particular file of graphic is inside the same root directory of the HTML document that you probably created. So that is how it's able to reference this one. So that is how to include images. Of course, as I told you, when we talk about background color, these are some of the properties that you can apply background colors to. So I would want you to have a way around it, see some few things about it. Now, of CSS border lines, so these are also, if you want to create a border line around maybe an object or a text on the document, a text on your HTML document, in your HTML document, you can also specify this way. So the CSS border property allows you to specify the style, width, and also color of the element border. So if it is a P tag and you want to put an outline, a border around the P tag, you can just specify it in this way. So you use the border, you specify the border. So in this case, if you want the border style to be dotted, of course, this is going to give you a dotted line. And these are ways of specifying background or borders for your work. So in this case, for instance, you can see, if you can see from here, we have the P dots dotted. So that should tell you that we are targeting the paragraph tag, and now we want to dot the paragraph tag and give it a border style of dotted. So that is how it is represented in CSS. So that is how it's also, this is the result of all these that are available. So if you want a double dotted, double line, as you can see over here, we have double. So we have the, what do you call it? And we have the border style double. So these are ways you can try some of these things. I'm not really going to go into it. After this, I will give you the quiz, which I would want you to go through it. I will give a preamble of how it's going to be, so that you run through it. Of course, when you talk about margins, just like when you open Microsoft Word, you have your margin, left margin and right margin all set, and also top and bottom also set. So in your website, in any website, most of the time, for instance, this one, you can see there is a little margin over here before the links do come in. So you can also set a margin, and you use the keyword. The margin also has these individual properties that are available. My margin top, right, bottom, and left. If you want the margin to be the same for all of the, for top, bottom, right, and left, you can just say margin colon, which is margin is a property, then colon, then you give us the value, which is probably 2 or 3, without specifying top, right, bottom. So in that case, margin alone, that's margin that you set. If it is 2, it affects the top, bottom, right, and also left. But if you want to have individual margins for each of these sections, like the top, right, bottom, and left, you have to call them one at a time. That is one way of doing it. So this one, for instance, we have the margin top is 100, the bottom is also 100. On the left and the right side is 150, and so on the left side is 80 pixels. That is one way of doing it. Another way to do it is also in this way. Instead of having to write all of these, we have margin top, margin right, and all of that. You can just specify margin. If, for instance, we have margin colon 25 without having 25 pixels, without having all these ones attached to it, that tells us that top, right, bottom, left should have a margin of 25. But the moment we specify these in a clockwise way, we have the top, we have the right. So of course we have in a clockwise, we move in a clockwise direction, not anti-clockwise. So we move in a clockwise direction. So that tells you that this figure is meant for the top. So we have the top margin 50 for the right margin, 75 for the bottom margin, and also 100 for the right margin. So that is how it goes. It goes in a clockwise direction. So the whole of this can be specified like this one, just margin. And once you put it in this way, it also will take effect for your margins on your page. Padding is different from margin. You know, margin, these are what you have. Padding, just like those of us who wear coats and suits and the rest, we always, or even our ladies, our kaba. I don't know if the kaba and slate that you have right now, they do put in some pad in here. You know, those times you have pad here. So meaning your actual skin, which is here, is being padded with maybe a foam to just raise it. So that is how padding also works. So for instance, this is the element, which is your body. Then you pad it. So from here to here is just padding. You've added more flesh to it, but the actual text is within. So that is how padding works. So padding is used to create space around an element content inside any defined border. So this is padding because the text itself, this is the text itself, but we've given it some sort of spaces around it. So that is how we pad what do you call it? Our coats, our suits, our kaba and slates. That is how padding really works. Padding is different from margin. With margin, then if this is supposed to be the padding for text in here, then from here to here is the margin. That is the space. Let me go back again. Margin are used to create space around the element. So this one is with around the element outside of any of the defined borders. And padding is used to create space around the element content inside any defined object. So padding is within, margin is outside it. I would want you to go through it and have an idea of what it is. All right, these ones I would want you to just take your time and go through it. Now there are so many types of fonts that by default your browser comes with, but most of the time your browser also understands some different types of fonts. So if you want the font for maybe this text to be different from any other fonts, you can call the name of the font. An example of a font is sans serif. So we have sans serif, we have serif, we have the cursive. By default, these are the 5 generic font families that our browser usually understand, that we normally use as well. Sometimes personally in the exercises you realize the font that you will probably use is maybe Vedana. So you can use Vedana as the font for your work. Now, so that is about fonts. There are lots of font styles that are available. We would want you to just go through these ones to enhance you come out with a solution for the exercise I'm going to give out to you. All right, so this I would want you to go through these few things. I would want you to check out how float works. You have a text here and you have a picture here and you have a text. You float it around it so that you have the text in there. Those that have done Microsoft Word, in fact, you've all done Microsoft Word, so you should know how this works. There are so many things that you can do with CSS, but to be able to, this is to introduce you to CSS, how to use it, how to reference the W3 schools all the time. And of course, in the exam, I would expect you to have the reference guide by you to answer some of the questions that I will give you in the practical exam for web programming. All right, so that is CSS.